Hello and welcome to the Arcade Veteran. Today we're going to talk about the Amiga CD32. This system was released in 1993 and cost £250. These are the three units I own. One's a Gotek modified unit, one's got a terrible fire, and the other is a standard unit in the middle. I came by these units all with capacitor problems, so obviously once I repaired them we were all up and running. It was released in September 1993 and was touted as the first 32-bit games console. The CD32 was based around the AGA chipset and included a CD-ROM drive, but it did lack many of the A1200's features. The custom chips of the CD32 was the Alex, the AGA display controller, the Lisa, the AGA display encoder, the Paula, which is an audio and I/O controller, the Akiko, a system address decoder, CD-ROM controller, and a chunky to planar conversion accelerator. These are the various inputs and outputs of the machine. This is my CD32 with a Gotek. It's got an LCD display to show the status of what game you've selected. It's currently loading Secret of Monkey Island. Quite handy to have that LCD compared to the original version which just came with a floppy drive. Analogic is where I actually bought the system from. Modified it with a Gotek and then went the stage further with adding the LCD display. This is the basic analogic device with a Gotek in it. There's the two systems before and after. This is my A1200 sort of copy setup. This is the Terrible Fire 328. Basically it's just an 8 RAM fast RAM expansion with an IDE connection and an RGB out. So quite basic, not like the 330 which has got the actual accelerator built on. This is the system booting up. As you can see, without the accelerator it's considerably slower, but you know it plays CD32 games, which was the reason I bought it. Basically the compact flash card in this will work on either the A1200 or this CD32, so it's you can tell how similar the hardware is. Once it's loaded we'll go into the game section. So there's your normal sort of A1200 desktop. Into the games directory, pick the CD32 games. I do have Cannon fodder on CD, so we'll load it off the Terrible Fire and the compact flash just to do a comparison really. If you are an owner of a CD32, the Terrible Fire is a definite choice. You know, rather than going out, the games are getting quite expensive now, so it's quite handy to have this because you haven't got to pay the astronomical prices that some of these are. I think I saw Cannon fodder on eBay the other day and they wanted £150 for it. This is Cannon fodder. None of these games are anything really more than what the Amiga could do, so it's I think this is one of its downfalls. A lot of the people, such as myself, that did own an A1200 at the time, I did buy a CD32 but quickly became aware that it was just an A1200 with a CD-ROM drive. Yes, it removed the hassle of having to load things from floppy, but to be fair, that was one of the few things it did actually bring. I was a bit disappointed. If you know, the two schools of thought, if you were in the camp of, you know, you loved your A1200, then great, you know, same as me. And it did remove a lot of the hassle from, you know, setup, messing around. You just bunged a disc in and you could play, so I could understand that point of view from buying this system. But I had quite a good A1200 system at the time, so it really didn't bring anything new to the table with me. You know, when you got the likes of the 3DO, the PlayStation 1, you know, the Saturn, you know, it really didn't bring enough to the table, and I can understand why this failed, because the niche market that it was delivering to, because it didn't bring anything really substantial to the market, there was nothing to really shout about with the A1200. It was an underwhelming machine from a company that was basically ran out of money. These are a few of my favourite games, you know, Cannon fodder, Lemmings. You know, Lemmings has been on just about everything, so you know exactly what you're going to get. The CD32 version isn't any different. Again, they didn't. A lot of the games had very little, some audio improvements, maybe a few colour improvements and a few tweaks, but to be fair, nothing that couldn't have been done on the A1200. If the developer was given a bit more time, I'm sure all of these things would have been in the original versions. Again, that's one of the big reasons why I think it failed. Everybody was expecting a killer app, and to be fair, I don't really think it ever turned up. This is another one of the discs with a few different games on it. This one's unbelievably bad. You've got to see this to believe it. This is quite honestly probably one of the worst fighting games I think I've ever seen. Considering the likes of, what was coming out on the Saturn, what was coming out on the PlayStation, what was coming out on the Jaguar and the 3DO, this is pretty poor compared to all of them. There is nothing here that to shout about by any stretch of the imagination. You'll see what I mean when you actually get to the actual action side of this. All these sequences have actually shortened because the load times are actually terrible. Well, this is it, Even the 3DO managed better than this. When you consider what the options were at the time, the competitors to this. Yes, it may well have been the first 32-bit system, but it was pretty much strangled. There's lots of reasons why this really couldn't deliver anything really major in the graphics department when you actually look at the actual specs, and it's been debated for years. Is it a 32-bit system? It was my own personal opinion was it was a strangled 32-bit system, and the developers just basically ported, or saw the opportunity to port a lot of the Amiga titles over. Now, if that was what you were looking for, like you say, a less hassle-free Amiga, then it did exactly what you said on the tin. But when you're competing against, if you want mass market, outside England, it was taken up brilliantly. I know they had problems getting it into America because of restrictions getting it into America, so that's probably what killed it eventually. But the rest of the world, it did actually take off fairly well. Maybe if it had sold into America and got some mass market sales behind it, maybe the software could have gone better, but the initial push tended to be regurgitated Amiga titles. So this is why we've ended up with this. Sensible Soccer, one of the first few games that showed us what football games could be all about. And this is the prelude to FIFA, I suppose. Thought we'd do England v Italy. Seems quite prudent considering we've just lost. I think this is actually quite a hard game. It's very fast paced compared to a lot of the other football games that came out after it, but quite challenging and quite effective. I quite enjoyed it at the time. Okay, so what else could you do with it? Very rare full motion video cartridge add-on. Very expensive to come by nowadays. If you wanted a bit more horsepower, then the TF330 gave you an accelerator and an extra processor, so it did speed things up. The unit has a much faster CPU, a 64 megabit of fast RAM and an IDE controller. Thank you for watching this look at the history of the CD32 in my collection, and we'll see what we can do next time. Right, so we're going to leave it there. Thanks for watching. Cheers, bye.